given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, welcome back. Second hour here, 540-0580. You have a legal question. You call in to get it answered here at WHP 580 and WLAN 1390 down in Lancaster. And, of course, if you can hear our signal on either of those stations, we're well situated to help you out. 540-0580. And, of course, if you need us throughout the week at the office, like I said, it's 241-6070, RomingerLaw.com. Jay, you're on the air. Hey, Jay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I only got part of it. I got a bad connection here, Carl.
That's okay.
I just had a question, and it came up because of some doctor charges, but you mentioned legal fees. And I know that doctors and lawyers don't advertise legal fees. I don't know how close they are. I mean, criminal law, I'm sure, is a wide swath of difference in legal fees for attorneys. And by the way, I just did a commercial shoot this morning in a lawyer's office locally that was disguised as a doctor's office.
Oh, really?
They wanted, it was kind of a parable that the doctor was supposed to be God, you know. It was a religious thing. I guess they didn't think a lawyer could be God. But
that's pretty funny.
Anyway, so is there any law? I mean, you know, you used to not see liquor sales. You don't see that advertised, or now you do see some beer sales advertised with prices. Is there any rule?
Yeah.
Or is it just a kind of a gentleman's agreement between the medical and legal profession?
There was a gentleman's agreement on no liquor advertising, which the liquor companies and the networks have voluntarily called off on network television, so they're just doing them prime time now. In fact, there's the Southern Comfort guy that everybody likes in one of the series of ads.
Well, I was thinking in terms of prices and print.
Oh, yeah. Now, I was going to come to pricing. There were state regulations, and many states forbid the price for bars for advertising price and or stores from advertising price. But 44 Liquor Mart, which was located in Rhode Island, okay, was cited by the Rhode Island authorities for violating that ban. And what 44 Liquor Mart said was, no, we took the ads out in a Massachusetts newspaper, and therefore that's interstate commerce and it's free speech, and you really can't regulate free speech because we want to tell people in another state what we're charging in our state, and they want to come across the border and buy it, so be it. And the United States Supreme Court said yes, that the First Amendment trumped the liquor regulations. And so I would say probably in 1994 or 5, somewhere in that time frame, maybe 96, I think is when 44 Liquor Mart versus Rhode Island came out. And then that's when you started noticing the ability to advertise price. And now, of course, we see price advertised on beer in newspapers all the time. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I wonder why you just can't. Well, I guess it's, lawyers are generally paid by the hour.
Right.
Physicians and doctors and dentists especially aren't. But it's just interesting that, unless you ask, you don't never know what it costs. I think that has to do with insurance, to be honest. But, as a practical matter.
Right.
So, okay.
All right, my friend.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. 540-0580. Alex, you're on the air.
Hi.
Yeah, what's going on?
I'm calling on behalf of my wife. We have a joint legal custody of her stepdaughter, and we wanted to take her for counseling, which was suggested by the ex-husband. We went through a lot of hoopla, for 3 months trying to find somebody. Finally got somebody. Went through 2 appointments, and they said, well, you have to. The practice said that both parties, have to sign off on the.
Okay.
And now he refuses to sign off on it. It's sort of typical behavior. And I'm wondering if we can do it anyway. And I do have the custody agreement in front of me. It's a very short paragraph. I don't know.
What does it say about counseling?
Well, it's more general. It just says...
they have joint legal custody?
Yeah, shall enjoy shared legal custody of the minor.
That's the answer. So they both have to agree, so they both need to sign off. That's what the psychologist is saying. Your remedy is to go to court and say, Judge, we picked a psychologist. He was okay with the psychologist. We started the psychologist. It's in the kid's best interest to continue with the psychologist. and Dad, for some reason, just won't sign the paperwork. Now, if he shows up in my office with that petition, I'm going to say to him, why the hell don't you just sign the paperwork? Why pay me to go to court to have the judge tell you to sign the paperwork? Secretly hoping that he's dumb and says, well, I'd rather the judge tell me to sign it, so I'll pay you, Mr. Rominger, to sit there and lose this case. So if you're following me, a petition for relief asking for the court to mandate that he sign off on this psychologist is likely to be granted.
Is there unfortunately, people always ask this question, is there a cheap way to go about this?
Yeah, I mean, the cheapest way is but you got to get back to court somehow, so I guess you can file your own paperwork and go that route.
Okay.
Or you can, but what you're hoping is that even by drafting the petition and sending it to him, or even with a letter saying, if you don't agree, here's a consent, sign it, but if you don't want to sign it and I don't get it back within 5 days, I'm going to court, is obviously even more impressive when it comes with the pleading ready to go.
Okay.
All right?
All right, yeah, and the other, piggybacking onto that, he had agreed to pay for half the health care for the children.
Right.
And now he's coming up with some sort of trumped-up thing that we went to one person that was out of network, and therefore he's not paying anything.
Well, with the health care, you go to domestic relations and get a court order for that.
Oh, really?
Yep, child support.
Well, that doesn't cost anything, so that's great.
Yep.
All right.
Thank
brother.
you,
Carl.
No problem.
Great.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
540-0580. Elmer.
Yeah, hi, Carl.
What's going on?
Oh, not much. Dodging the raindrops.
Yeah, there's a couple of them down.
Yeah. Why, I read on the internet this week where they started up these debtors' prisons again. Have you heard about that?
No, where are they starting those up?
Well, I think out in the Midwest there, Missouri, somewhere out there, these judges, these companies that give money to them, they go there and get some kind of a court order and file a report against you, and then they put out a warrant for your arrest, and when you show up, the judge determines how much you got to pay.
Right.
Does Pennsylvania have anything like that?
We don't have a debtor's prison now. No.
But I wonder if that's really legal. I guess it is, huh?
Well, let's see. Here's a Wall Street Journal article. Are debtors' prisons coming back?
Yeah.
So apparently there's a movement out there.
Yeah, it must be there in the West somewhere there. But I was kind of wondering if Pennsylvania had anything like that. I mean, I never heard of it before, but evidently they must have had that many moons ago. Even in Pennsylvania, did they or didn't they?
Oh, yeah, they had them everywhere.
Yeah. That was always kind of funny when I read it there. But, they don't even let you determine how much you want to pay.
Right.
They just set a fee there. Like this one guy, he only got $730 a month Social Security, and the judge made him pay $100 on his debt a month.
Let's see. Here's a rumor. Okay, what I got here says the United States abolished debtors' prisons in 1830s, but more than a third of states allow borrowers who can't afford or won't pay their debts to be jailed.
Yeah, but they don't have it in Pennsylvania, huh?
No, there's none that I'm aware of at all.
Yeah. Well, let's say these collection agencies, could they move an office out west and then claim you owe a debt and then call you out there for it?
They're saying what they do. This is the quick read on it. Is they get a summons for an examination or review of financial assets. When you don't show up for that, they then ask for a body attachment, which is a warrant for your arrest, and then they put you in jail where you remain in court or you pay the bond, which is usually the amount of the debt. Right,
yeah. Yeah, that's what it said on the internet there. I was reading about that. I never heard of anything like that, but so I just wondered if they ever had anything like that here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, no, they don't put you in prison for the debt per se, but they're procedurally putting you in prison while you work on paying off debt. Very interesting, and thanks for bringing it to my attention, Elmer. We'll talk about it more. I got to go to break. 540-0580. I'll see you guys when I get back from the break. Break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. 540-0580. Oh, boy. That's a good song, by the way. Little Prince. Skip, you're on the air.
How you doing, Carl?
How you doing?
Okay. I have a question about adverse possession.
Yes.
I have a lot, and there's property on both sides of me, and occasionally there's no written or agreement or anything, but the guy uses it to cross over onto my paved part to get out to the street from his dirt lot. And I'm just wondering, and then the guy on the other side, on the left side of it, I've let them use the lot also because mine's paved in order to get him back to his building. Someone told me that like once a year or something I should close it off so in the future that there's no applied consent by just using it, that might create some kind of a problem. What's your
Okay, so
that?
If somebody uses the driveway, the best thing you can do is give them permission to use it and do it in writing.
Okay.
Because that creates a license, and a license can never create adverse possession because adverse means it has to be adverse to your interest. And if you've licensed it, then that's not a problem. So that's the irony is a lot of people don't understand that if you keep telling the guy to stop and he keeps doing it and you do nothing, your building is adverse possession case.
Okay.
If, on the other hand, you simply say, you know what, you have my permission to do this and do it in writing, and hang on to it when he goes to file adverse possession someday, or you go to exclude him and he says, no, you can't exclude me, you can say, no, I'm revoking your license.
Okay. So do I get him to sign it?
That's a good idea. That way he acknowledges it, and that way he can't say that he wasn't aware of the fact that you had licensed him.
Okay, and then maybe give him a copy.
Yep. Perfect way to do it.
Okay. And just one other quick thing.
Yep, go ahead.
I had mailed you a book called In the Gravest Extreme.
I am almost done with it.
What do you think of it so far?
It's interesting. When I'm finished it, we're going to talk about it. So I'll give you a heads up. I'll give you like a week's notice.
Yeah, because I thought since you I didn't get out to the hunters and anglers when you were there, and I thought some of that information in that book might have been pertinent to your talk.
I'll tell you what, the Hunters and Anglers group is a really good group. There's a lot of nice people there. And the questions they had, as I told them at the beginning, there were no stupid questions, maybe just dumb answers.
Yeah.
But the long and short of it is, it's so confusing, self-defense.
Oh, I know.
And it's so problematic. And I just summed it up at the beginning and the end, basically saying, I think we're going to end where we started, which is you don't want to shoot anybody if you don't have to.
Because it all comes back to the discretion of the district attorney.
That's correct.
And if he happens to be running for office right now and there's some question, you're going to be charged, and you're going to have to go before a court of law to prove that you were innocent.
Correct.
Because he's not going to go one way or the other, especially if it's involving a minority person or something along those lines that's questionable. He's going to stay away from it. So you're going to have to defend yourself. But that book, In the Gravest Extreme, I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, and if we'll make sure we let people know more about it.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, Carl.
All right, Skip.
See ya.
Bye. 540-0580. If you have a legal question, we'll answer it here on the air. Of course, Rominger Law, ROMINGER, law.com is where you can go to contact us throughout the week. If you have a legal problem, we practice all around the mid-state. We have an office in Lancaster, Carlisle. We can meet with you in about 8 other locations. We have facilities to sit down with you. We do telephone consultations, and most of our first consultations are free. So with that in mind, now, of course, are you going to get 3 hours for free? No. Are you going to get 15 to 20 minutes for free? Definitely. Are you going to get an hour for free? Maybe. Just depends, if your case sounds interesting. But we do a lot of free consultations for people. And one of the things I like about doing the free consultations is a lot of times when people call me up, I say, there's nothing a lawyer can do. This is what you need to do. Here's a quick piece of advice. And then sometimes people say, what do I owe you? You say, well, it's a free consultation. So no, you don't owe me anything. Just think of us in the future. And it's nice. It's a win-win because we're able to help people out and they get some advice, and then they get to know us and get to like us and hopefully hire us in the future. So that's why we do the free consultations. I even usually do a free consultation for a current client if they're coming in on a new matter. So we'll just keep that word out there. 540-0580 if you want to get your legal questions answered here on the air. And, of course, we could talk about all kinds of things. I'm not sure what's really going on in the law right now. The summer vacation is ending now. Drew Peterson was convicted the other day after a deliberation, and that's kind of interesting. They had no body and no real explanation, I guess, or at least they were saying it was suspicious, and They had exhumed remains and the whole 9 yards. So with that in mind, I think the government's theory, which I always like, is, well, he's a police officer, so he'll know how to stage a crime. And there's always this theory that somehow if a person's a police officer, they're going to have some great ability to be able to stage a crime. And so over the years, I've had the pleasure of representing many police officers in court, many times in divorces and personal injury. One time in a perjury case, perjury? Was it perjury? No, it was it was bribery, not perjury, in a bribery case on appeal. And then one time I had a chief of police who had actually shot his wife. And of course, that was the one where the district attorney, just like we heard in the Peterson case, was saying, well, I mean, he knows the state of mind. He knows what he's doing. He's investigated these kinds of things, so he has extra knowledge. I'm not always convinced that's the case, but if you're a police officer, you really don't want to be in the crosshairs of law enforcement because they really always do seem to go harder on the police than they would on an ordinary citizen. I don't really think that's fair. 540-0580. Fred, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, Fred.
Yes.
What's going on?
I'm a landlord.
Okay.
And I gave a lady permission to have a dog on the property.
Uh-huh.
But it's a damn mean dog.
Okay.
If that thing bites somebody, am I liable?
Technically, no. If they lease the space and they're a bona fide renter,
right?
Then their acts of negligence are not your acts of negligence.
Like I say, I do have a pet fee. Does that come in there somewhere?
No, I think you're okay. Now, do you have some kind of umbrella insurance overall as a landlord?
I probably have $1 million worth.
Yeah, you're also backed up with insurance. So in the worst case scenario, they somehow get around the tenant into you. Your insurance policy is going to pick it up. But what I would do, I would just check with your agent to always be certain on an insurance policy. It never hurts to just call your agent and say, "Hey,
right.
I'm allowing a pet. I just want to be sure. Am I covered if this pet does anything?" I wouldn't mention to the insurance guy that it's a damn dangerous dog. I'd leave that part out. I just, mention they got a dog and see what they say.
Right.
Now, in Pennsylvania, dogs, dog bite cases are good cases for lawyers if the dog has either bitten somebody previously or has known dangerous propensities. Yeah. But reality is that they got to get through the tenant first, and if they get through the tenant, they probably can't reach you. But in the off chance they could, that's what that insurance policy is for.
Insurance would pick it up.
And that's another thing, by the way. A lot of times guys will come to me and they want to do all these elaborate things to avoid liability and make people sign 12 different ways. And I'm like, really? The easiest thing to do is just buy a good comprehensive insurance policy.
Right. I have, like I say, $1 million worth of liability, I think.
Right. And that way you're shielded. And then, of course, if you have assets, too, you want to make sure you have adequate policies that will shield the value of the assets. So if you ended up with, $3 million in rental property and you're really happy with yourself, you're going to want to make sure you have at least $3 million in coverage somehow.
Right. Wow. I better check into that. Okay, Carol. Thank you very much.
All right, Fred. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's good if he has to check into that. He might have more than $1 million in rental property. It's not a bad position to be in. And rental property right now, that's kind of the growth industry because a lot of people aren't buying homes. They aren't quite the strong investment that they were. By the way, let's talk about the unemployment rate slightly here. Have you noticed that finally, it only took a couple of years for the news media to catch on to this, but they finally pointed out that the falling of the unemployment rate is mainly due not to new jobs, but to the fact that people are simply giving up and stopping looking for jobs because we decide that they are discouraged or they make a life choice and take a retirement or Social Security or something that may become an irrevocable decision and remove themselves from the main brunt of the job market. Also read a very interesting article in the Wall Street Journal the other day that there is no structural problem with unemployment. Some people are starting to suggest, well, there's nothing the president can do because the industries are changing and where people are working is changing and they're the right skills for the right jobs, so people can't get employed because they don't have the right skills in the industries that are hiring. And the numbers don't bear that out. The biggest drops in employment during this recent recession happened in the construction industry and the retail industry and one other. And those are all the areas that have picked back up as the jobs have picked up. So we're regaining jobs mainly in the same areas where we lost jobs, which suggests, again, that there's no main structural problem. So don't be fooled when somebody says there's nothing we can do. We just have no real recovery going on right now because we have no real economic growth. And so We need something. What we don't need is quantitative easing, which is what they're about to start again. I know at least one of my listeners is a strong advocate of trying to let people know that this quantitative easing is really just a way of stealing from you. It's called how to inflate your way out of the debt. And the way you inflate the way out of the debt is to lower the value of the money, therefore lowering the value of the debt. But what you do is you lower the value of every American savings, and you lower the value of every dollar that each American earns. So if the Fed goes through this quantitative easing 3, this will be the third time that your pockets have been fleeced to try to make up for overspending at the federal level. So think about that the next time you're wondering who to vote for. Ask them what their financial policies are and how they feel a central bank should be acting. And that may be as important a point or more important a point to make your decision on than all these crazy social issues that everybody seems to think are so important in a president, when really social issues can be dealt with by the legislature at the end of the day, because remember, the president doesn't have to sign a bill if enough people agree. They can override it. What you really need, though, is a good, strong economic leadership, and we need, no one's giving, and the Europeans are doing the same thing, no one's giving long-term signals. No one really knows where we're going to be, and with an election going on right now, the next 4 years, Obama said, you're going to vote to change how you shape the future. How the future gets shaped is going to be determined on who gets voted in, and he's absolutely correct. Whether you love him or hate him, it doesn't matter. He's absolutely correct on that point. And so nobody, no bank, no business person, no institution knows whether they should be planning for a continued high-tax state or whether they should be planning for perhaps the Republicans to come in and maybe actually make cuts this time, which they were incapable of the last time. But if they do, the election will at least stimulate growth, because it will allow the parties to start to figure out what the new structures are going to look like and make their decisions. I'm suspecting that a Mitt Romney election would further the economy much farther than an Obama election, but the certainty is what we need right now. So you've got to get past the election before this economy is probably going to pick up. 540-0580. I'll be back after the break. Well, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. I have gone to Google, and I have beamed down to the planet, and I have put together the charcoal with the stick, made the gunpowder just like Captain Kirk did. So if you haven't done that yet, you got to go on the front page of Google here and play a little Star Trek. It's a classic episode. Glad to see they picked that one, and otherwise a very funny front. 540-0580. Ricky, you're on the air.
Carl, I lived in South Hanover Township, and I've been here for almost 30 years. And a big developer built a housing development across the street from us starting about 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
And they have like $800,000 houses there. Well, they didn't do a retention pond, and the street comes out right across from us, and they put curbing in, and now stormwater runoff has destroyed our property, and it comes in our house, and one of the posts in the basement sank, and what's gonna happen is the cellar wall is gonna fall in. And I put up a sign in my yard on a trailer about a week ago, and it got a lot of attention because I went to the township a year ago with all my pictures, and they don't do anything to the developer.
Right.
And I put a sign up. I got activity. The builder called and said, get my name off there and all that. So I'm going to go another route with that. But my question is, no one will assume responsibility for this. And if it comes down to the township, is at fault because they did not do something correctly for this? Can you go after you can't sue the township, but can you go after supervisors and planning commission people?
Not really, no. They enjoy the shield of the township. So, long story short, though, you can still sue the developer if they did something wrong.
Okay.
And just because the township approved their plans doesn't solve any nuisance that they're creating.
I went down to the township on Friday and told them I need all the land development plans and the planning commission minutes and the meetings from the minutes and a lot of things, and we'll wait to see if I get those. And I have an engineer that will review these things for me.
Right.
So my good friend is 30 years as an engineer, and he told me the problem with getting an engineer is they won't go against the township to testify if they come back in here and get plans approved.
Right, absolutely.
So here's the problem. You can't you can't sell our house because you have to tell somebody there's water destroying the property. All my blacktop driveways are destroyed down to my business. There's ditches in my yard down below up to your knees.
It sounds like, though, that you may have a pretty good lawsuit against the developer.
Okay.
When did they put all this in? How long ago?
It's in the last couple of years. I have pictures that go back like 3 years with dates on the back. I have like 300 pictures.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too much farther, but it sounds like an ongoing nuisance. And with water, okay, water's the common enemy in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And so I have the right to sort of do something with my land, and if the water shunts off my land and causes you problems, that's your problem. It's our common enemy, so you got to fight water too.
Okay.
On the other hand, if I artificially channel the water or create a structure that somehow directs the water. So the way I like to describe it is if the water just runs off my land off the side, sort of,
Right.
And falls onto your land, no problem. On the other hand, if I channel it somehow, artificially channel it or create a way for it to accumulate in an unnatural accumulation, then there's liability for it.
Okay.
And you at least may have ability to get a cease and desist, nuisance-style lawsuit, if not damages.
Well, here, all the water from the street across runs in to 2 drain boxes, and no one knows where the pipes go, but there's 2 drain boxes in front of our house, and all the water that runs into those 2, the one in front of our house in the driveway has been there since I lived here. They run out of the 12-inch pipe that comes out on our property down way off the right-of-way in my yard. So all the water from that street runs on us, everything.
Right.
So I said to another attorney, I asked, and I said, the law is you can't have any more water run out of there than ran out before, and that's what my engineer said. So I said I'm going to downsize that from 12 inches to 4 inches, and I'm going to sandbag my property. And he said, oh, well, you're going to have a problem then because if you flood the street, you might be liable. I said, well, can I protect my property? Yeah, you can by law.
Right.
So they said that I should go to Channel 8, and get Brian Roche involved and all the TV stations and everything. And so I'm calling to see if you have any advice or if you'd be interested in talking to us about helping us on this.
Yeah, the surest way to solve it is to get an engineer to figure out what's going on, number one.
Okay, that's what I started to do.
And if the engineer writes up and says, here's what's actually happening, here's where the water's working, then we go to the developer. I had a case like this once where the guy actually lived in a development, and we had to sue the developer because all the water was accumulating in his yard.
Right.
And it turned out what happened was they had accidentally graded the land wrong, off plan, and his foundation was 4 foot lower than it was supposed to be.
Okay.
And the developer then, after we showed him everything, to his, what I want to say, merit, or went and came back with a plan to remediate it. My engineer looked at it and said, that's nice, but those pipes aren't quite big enough, and I know he's trying to save some money, but here's what's going to happen. They're going to silt in too fast.
Right.
So we need to use 12-inch, not 8-inch, and we need to do this, this, and this, and then it'll work. And the developer grumbled a little bit but said, all right, and put it all in, and everybody lived happily ever after.
Okay.
So these things can sometimes be resolved. Now, here's the answer. If you go to News 8 or something, or whoever,
right,
and you vilify the guy,
right,
he's never going to go down quietly because now he has to protect his reputation.
Okay.
And there'll never be a follow-up story if he remediates, right? Because nobody cares about that.
Right.
So you don't want to lose your leverage, so to speak, by putting him in a position where there's no benefit in being nice until you're sure he's not going to be nice.
Okay.
And the answer is they may not have done this. Remember something. Nobody set out to do this on purpose either, I'm sure. I'm sure when they wrote up the plans, they didn't have an X over your house and say, we're going to flood this guy out. Ha, ha, ha. It just turned out that way. So we got to remove the personal animosity from it and get back to business and say, here's our legal rights. Let's get this fixed.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So I'd be happy to help. This is the kind of case I like, but you are going to have to spend a couple $1,000 getting it done.
Now, you can't, if you have to spend money to protect your property for something that you didn't cause, you have no legal recourse to get those damages back?
You may be able to get damages back, but legal fees are weird, and they're not generally available, and they're not really considered damages, which is a long story for another day. But that said, you may be entitled to certain other damages, which would effectively help pay for the attorney.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. All right. I thank you for your help.
All right. Good luck.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. I always counsel people, my favorite one is in a divorce, like, I'm going to expose all his wrongdoing and he'll be arrested and he'll be out of business. And I'm like, really? He'll be out of business? So your plan is he's going to pay the child support and that alimony award you want. How? How is that again? Because when you run him out of business, he will not be able to pay that, or I'm going to report her to whoever. And like, okay, and when you report her to whoever, you're prepared to be full-time custodian of your children, right? And so sometimes we've got to think ourselves through very carefully what it is we want to do before we create a situation we can't extricate ourselves from or even our opponent from, because sometimes when we put our opponent in the wrong position, then they have nothing to lose, So if you're holding my head underwater, I'm probably going to try to get out of the pool, right? On the other hand, if we're just having a friendly conversation, maybe we can work things out and everybody can live happily ever after. So you got to think long and hard about how you're going to do it, because certain things will guarantee certain results, or at least make certain amicable resolutions next to impossible. So you always have to remember that. And just, I heard the emotion in the caller's voice. I can tell he's upset. This is something that's been festering for a while. The township is not going to help him. And really, townships, they aren't very helpful a lot of times with these kinds of situations, because it's really not their fight. And interestingly, when they approve bad plans, that's not really a negligence issue on them so much as it is on the original engineer, because, again, they were relying upon what? The certifications and the expertise of the people who brought them the materials. So we go back to those people. And, again, a lot of builders, particularly if you're in their community, they're going to be more interested in you. But a neighboring community, a lot of builders like to have a good reputation. And if you think about it, a lot of builders and developers would come forward and say, hey, you know what? We fixed this problem and try to build some goodwill in the neighborhood. So you just don't want to go off half tilt if you don't have to. But again, it's not my driveway that, I woke up and got washed out one night. I actually had a case years ago where the people did wake up one morning and there was literally a 4-foot ditch through their yard because the water was coming across the street for the first time. Anyhow, when we tracked it all down, what we learned is the farmer's son had taken over the farm up above on the next hill over, and the farmer's son had skipped the agricultural extension courses, so he planted the corn rows up and down the hill slope instead of across it. And so when the big rain came in July, for the first big rain of the year, after he'd retilled and planted everything, the water for the first time came sweeping off that hill, where it landed in a ditch that this other guy had dug because he was having some excess water developing, which then discharged it into a township ditch, which then put it through a little pipe that used to have a trickle going through it, and it just ran over the road, and they literally woke up with a giant gorge in their yard, and it was many thousands of dollars to fix that, and everybody had to pitch in, and it's a long story, but the whole thing was resolved the next year when the farmer simply started planting the corn crosswise against the field again, which I thought was basic farming 101, but like I said, I guess the son, when he took over, had not paid much attention to why Dad did what Dad did. Anyhow, 540-0580. I want to get back from the break. We'll answer a few more questions. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Answered a few more of your legal questions. 540-0580. Steve, you're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon, Carl. Question about expungement of a third-degree 10-year felony. With no problem since then, he's looking to go to hack and start a career.
Here, let me stop you right now. Pennsylvania, if you're convicted or plead guilty, so you're found guilty some way or the other of a felony or a misdemeanor,
right?
We have no expungements without a pardon.
Right. So that means it has to go clear to the governor.
It has to go first through the governor. You have to get a pardon, and then you can get an expungement.
So obviously that's going to need the work of an attorney, you think?
It does, and I think they have a 3-year backlog right now on those, and there's no guarantee they'll expunge it. So,
right. Well, of course, if you go through 10 years and mitigating circumstances, gainfully employed, and all that all helps, I guess. Right?
Correct. But they're not high probability matters. So I always take this as an opportunity to remind people before you plead guilty to something, even a misdemeanor, you think, oh, my public defender or my private lawyer or my cousin says I should plead guilty and just be done and pay the fine, and they're not even going to put me in jail. Stuff never goes away.
Yeah. So if you had to give at odds, do you think 10% of them make it?
I think that would be fair. I think the board could tell us exactly what percentage are, but I can tell you it has a lot to do with the seriousness of the crimes as well.
Yeah.
All right?
All right, thanks.
All right, my friend. Sorry about that.
All right, bye-bye.
540-0580. Tom, you're on the air.
Yeah, Carl, I got a question to ask you here. A friend of mine called me up the other day and asked me, I guess he got the FICA package, and he tried to explain jury nullification to me, and it seemed complicated. Can you explain what jury nullification really means if you're a juror? Let's say if a guy's on trial for possession of marijuana.
Right.
If in your mind, if you believe that marijuana shouldn't be illegal, can you nullify him?
Well, you can nullify a verdict. The jury has the absolute right to nullify it. However, the judge will pretend that you don't and will, as some people have said, make a misstatement to you and tell you that you must follow the law.
Right.
And now, some other people have said, no, you must follow the law, and the judge is instructing you correctly on that because the law itself can't, it would be recursive logically for the law to tell you not to follow the law, right?
Right. I couldn't say to the judge, well, or the juror, my fellow jurors, that I would like to nullify.
You can say whatever you want to your fellow jurors because what you say in the jury room doesn't become public. But if you want to have some fun, I would. If I was on a jury, here's the question I would send the judge. If I was even remotely thinking about nullification, I would say, dear judge, you told us we have to follow the law. However, some of us want to find the defendant not guilty because we want to exercise the historic right of nullification. Is there such a thing, and may a juror be held responsible in any way for nullifying a verdict? Now, because the way you phrased the question, as I say, can a juror be held responsible for anything? Because if you just ask, is there such a thing as nullification and can we do it, he's just going to say you have to follow the law and leave it at that, right?
Right.
But you got to press him on it and say, if we do it, can we get in any trouble? Because then he has to say no to that one, right?
Right.
And if he says no, you can't get any trouble for doing it, then he must be acknowledging you can do it.
Can you present this to the jury selection process?
If you bring it up in the jury selection process, you ain't making the jury, brother.
Right.
Judge will nix you. The judge will nix you so fast.
But
so here's what you got to do. If I was on, listen, I think if I was on a jury where I thought the law was wrong and I wanted to exercise the right for nullification, I would keep my mouth shut the entire time on nullification unless asked squarely about it.
Right.
And then when I got back to that jury room, I would just vote not guilty.
Right. Okay, thank you, Carl.
That's your absolute right. I mean, now, they took that right away from the people in one respect because back in the 1800s, I think, late 1800s, early 1900s, some court said you need not tell jurors of their right to nullify. But when our forefathers created the Constitution, folks, and listen up, the right of jury nullification was built in because juries always decided what the facts were and whether the law should be applied. Juries were originally there to protect you not only from the injustice of the facts, but from the injustice of the law.
Right.
And that got stolen back by the government because the king is always jealous of his power and he's always trying to steal it back. Ever since that darn Magna Carta was signed, the king's been trying to get some of that power back.
Right.
So remember, folks, and someday I wish somebody would do some jury nullification once in a while. But now I know some district attorney's going to call me up all crazy about how I'm, promoting jury nullification and that I should be disbarred for doing that. But I'm just going to exercise my free speech right and say I just want back the same rights that I had right after the king was deposed.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl.
All right, Tom.
Yep.
Bye. That king wants his power back, and you got to keep your foot in the door, or he'll shut it on you. Remember that. 540-0580. Nicole, you're on the air.
Hi, I have a question about when you purchase a used automobile. We purchased a 91 Passat last week, and there were some things that hadn't been completed in it yet through their inspections. And they gave us an IOU that we could come back and have that done. And we went back this week and had it done, and I expressed to them that I had to put some antifreeze in. I had actually called them earlier in the week to find out what kind to put in because it was all over our carport. And they told me, and we went back and had some of those things worked on. For instance, the trunk doesn't open. So they diagnosed it. We sat there for about 2 hours, and they said, you're actually going to have to come back again because we have to order the part. And I said, well, you were going to detail the car as well, and we're getting ready to leave for Williamsburg Sunday. Are you going to do that today? And he goes, well, we'll just do it all at once. But we did get your reverse light in. And I said, okay. So I drove home and parked the car, went inside, and came there was antifreeze all over the ground. So I immediately called them, and I said, there's still a leak. I'm not sure what to do. I thought originally it was my fault because I had checked the antifreeze.
Okay, shoot fast. We're almost out of time. Almost out of time. So,
and so anyway, I took it in. They looked at it, and they originally told us no leaks. Now they're telling us to remove this own dime because we purchased the vehicle as is.
Right. When you purchase it as is, it is what it means. And if they were unaware of the problem, they didn't have a duty to let you know.
Okay.
I would take it to your own independent repair place and find out how much it's going to cost to get it fixed.
Okay.
All right?
All right. Thank you.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. We got her wrapped up just in the nick of time. Good thing Shane gave me the hand signal. She was going to go on and on and on about, well, there's a little antifreeze in one part of the driveway and then some antifreeze up on the side. Anyhow, now she's got her answer, I think. When you buy it as is means as is, folks. There you go. You learned something new today. I will see you next week. I'll be here from 1 to 3 answering your legal questions live as always. Love doing the show. Talk to you later.